Good morning, y'all. Okay, we're gonna get straight to this build.
It's not a pseudoscience.
It's a pseudoscience.
I came up with something different.
Let's read it again.
Indeed, astrologers complain that most scientific tests have tested the scientist's concept of astrology, not astrology as practiced by the reputable astrological community.
So you mean to tell me that there's a community of people who do reputable testing? No.
Shiny,
Read it
what
again.
you're saying is backwards. That's not what it's saying. The test group selected the correct interpretation as its first choice at the rate of...
You can't see that? Why you stop? The astrological community's perspective, not the scientific way.
Right, I understand that. I see that.
And there's problems. And now that we have identified problems, you no longer want to read, my girl.
No,
You just
because
this bullshit, though. Okay, I still wasn't saying that it was a science.
I'm not saying it's a science. I said it's a belief.
What it is a chance, a poor chance at that. Because according to the astrological community that designed the test, they failed.
Hello. Okay, as you saw with that build, I was trying to get across to Sean that it's not a pseudoscience. Astrology is not a pseudoscience. That it is a belief system in which he wants to continue to say it's a pseudoscience because that is the accepted belief amongst the scientific community. But you know, science so funny because it proves until it doesn't, right? It proves and then it disproves and it proves and disproves depending on what information is available then. So once it proves something or it believes something, then it's like, oh well, shit, that got proven wrong. Now we're gonna put this other label on it, and that is where I'm tending to disagree. So let's get to what I'm saying here. Astrology is the world's largest belief system. Okay. What I am answering, the question I'm answering today is, should astrology be considered a pseudoscience in modern times? And I'm saying that, well, should it be considered a pseudoscience, right? Well, there's many different types of astrology. There's the types of astrology by culture. You have all these different kinds. They do things differently. Like Chinese astrology goes by year. And then we have, Jewish astrology. Then you have this Western astrology. And Western astrology is where I'm going to touch on because that is what we were touching on in our debate against each other, me and Sean. So, what is Western astrology? Western astrology is a system of astrology most popular in Western countries. Western astrology is historically based on Ptolemy's Tetrabiblos from 2nd century CE, which in turn was a continuation of Hellenistic and ultimately Babylonian traditions. What does that mean? That basically means that it's based on Babylonian traditions. However, it is not the same. As we know, Western astrology is largely horoscopic. That is, it's a form of divination based on a construct of a horoscope for an exact moment. Divination is the attempt to gain insight into a question or situation by way of an occultic standardized process or ritual. As we know, when we see occultic rituals and things like that, we automatically put that into a system of belief mostly. But we're going to continue with the construction of a horoscope for a person's exact moment. such as the person's birth and location where they were born, and things of that nature, in which various cosmic bodies are said to have an influence on that person. Astrology in Western popular culture is often reduced to the sun sign, which is basically the position of the sun when that person is born. So, although based on the ancient Babylonian construct of astrology, is not the same at all. They, for one, they throw out actual constellations. They fix the constellation, so they fix the signs, right? So, whereas the Earth has tilted and it moves, and you know, Aquarius might not be where Aquarius was before, and all that. That doesn't matter in Western astrology. Western astrology, although it took the constellations and things of that nature, it fixed them within the months of our calendar. So that's one difference of this. Is it's almost not even really based on that anymore, as far as even taking these charts and doing all this. Also, when you do a chart for astrology, you have a sun sign, you have the moon, you have the stars, you have the planets, you know what house you in. You have all these different things. To just take your sun sign and do that, it is really making it super basic, and it is taken away from it as well, right? So it's forming the belief, right? So where it's just we're going to do it, we're just going to do it this way. You know, it's based off of Babylonian traditions, but it is not the same. So when you look at what is astrology, period, it is the study of the movements and relative positions of celestial bodies interpreted as having an influence on human affairs in the natural world. Okay, what's a celestial body? Well, celestial is positioned in or relating to the sky and outer space as observed in astronomy, belonging or relating to heaven. So when we're talking about astronomy, it definitely we can get with that because astronomy came out of astrology. They're related. They're linked. Okay. So the Britannica definition of astrology says astrology is a type of divination, which we already know divination is um, the something that is done with occultic practices, rituals, things of that nature. It's belief. So that involves the forecasting of earthly and human events through the observation and interpretation of the fixed stars, the sun, the moon, and the planets. Devotees believe that an understanding of the influence of the planets and stars on earthly affairs allows them to both predict and affect the destinies of individuals, groups, and nations. Though often regarded as a science throughout its history, astrology is widely considered today to be diametrically opposed to the findings and theories of modern Western science. We had an interesting conversation about this here. Definition one, they talk about the interpretation of the fixed stars and stuff. We all know that interpretation basically deals with your belief, deals with your feelings, it deals with your view, your outlook, you personally. It does not have to be a fact, is any of that. It's just how you see things, right? With all of this whole beginning thing of this, it's belief. I mean, you're talking about divination, devotees, believing in all this stuff, um, and everything else. And so then you decided that because it is diametrically opposed, well, we can see what you said about it being diametrically opposed to science and what you think that means. So let's see what you said about it being diametrically opposed.
Completely, directly opposed. Their views are diametrically opposed on the other side. So it's telling us that astrology is on the other side of science, which is a pseudoscience.
What you did there, sir, was a fallacy. It's a black and white fallacy. You presented two alternative states as the only possibilities when in fact more possibilities exist. So you decided that because it was um, diametrically opposed, that it has to be a pseudoscience. And that's not necessarily true. Not at all. So, I mean, like, what is a pseudoscience, right? Pseudoscience consists of statements, beliefs, or practices that claim to be both scientific and factual, but are incompatible with the scientific method. So I can definitely see how you're saying like that goes against science because it's not compatible with the scientific method, which is what science uses to prove. Okay. Pseudoscience is often characterized by contradictory, exaggerated, or unfalsifiable claims, reliance on confirmation bias rather than rigorous attempts at refutation, lack of openness to evaluation by other experts, absence of systematic practices when developing hypotheses, and continued adherence long after the pseudoscientific hypothesis has been experimentally discredited. And I know that you would really love to use that because you're like, oh, it has all these double blind and triple blind and quadruple blind tests, and people still believe, right? But it has to still try to be scientific and factual. Right? So yes, science could go with that. Belief and acceptance that a statement is true or that something exists is definitely opposed to science. That's like that's like saying science where? Science who? Because you're saying here, you're just gonna accept it. It's true. You don't care. You don't even have to prove it. That's definitely opposed to science. Um, a belief system, right? Let's look at a belief system. Is this opposed to science? A set of principles or tenets which together form the basis of a religion, philosophy, or moral code. Well, it's a belief system. What's a tenet? A principle or belief, especially one of the main principles of a religion or a philosophy. Philosophies are not proven. There's their thought process as well. So I think that this also goes. Um, there's the opposite of science as well. Um, a philosophy would definitely fit astrology as a theory or attitude held by a person or organization that acts as a guiding principle for behavior. Yes, the study of the fundamental nature of knowledge, reality, and existence, especially when considered as an academic discipline. Okay. The study of the theoretical basis of a particular branch of knowledge or experience. Yes, definitely. So we have astrology definitely fitting under philosophy, a belief system, a belief, and what you would like to say is a pseudoscience. I don't know. It has to be scientific and factual. Has to try to say all of those things, and I don't know that it is doing that. But you, sir, you did do something. You asked a question. You asked, "Is it a science or not?" Because I'm saying it's not a science, right? But um, you made a point with this. Let's see what you said here.
Astrology is often regarded as a science throughout its history.
Yes.
Astrology, but can you? Why come I can't finish? You just said that you're not arguing that it is a science and that it is
Right.
saying that regarded as a science throughout its history.
Yeah.
Which one is it? If it's astrology,
Which one is it indeed, Sean? That was your question. Which one is it? Well, we all know that astrology and astronomy were one. They were presented as one. For most of its actual from birth to now, right? Astrology and astronomy were together for most of the time. And in the 18th century, they separated them, right? It separated them between science and non-science based on new information that came to light, right? When you learn new things, you make changes and stuff, especially science. We know this, right? Science fixes itself, as they like to say. So, of course, we're not going to take my word for this as usual. We're going to see. So, astrology is a range of divinatory practices. We know what that is, right? Attempt to gain insight by way of a cultic standardized process or ritual. So it is a range of divinatory practices recognized as pseudoscientific since the 18th century. But I say the 18th century. So since this time, they have decided that it was no longer considered a science. You look up astrology and astronomy together, right? They were archaically treated together, but gradually distinguished through the late Middle Ages into the Age of Reason. Developments in 17th century philosophy resulted in astrology and astronomy operating as independent pursuits by the 18th century. Was that 18th century, right? So, whereas the academic discipline of astronomy studies observable phenomena beyond the Earth's atmosphere, the pseudoscience of astrology uses the apparent positions of celestial objects as the basis for divination. Okay, why do they keep trying to throw this pseudoscience on this divination? Why can't it just be the belief system that it is, right? Because that's what it is, right? It's a belief system. It's constantly telling us this. So, but to go back to answer Sean's question, is it a science or not? It is not. Of course not. And when did it become not a science? It became not a science in the 18th century. That's when it became no longer a science. But then, you know, this still probably isn't enough to prove that it's not a pseudoscience, but it is a belief. So we're going to go back to Western astrology, right? And it's based on Ptolemy's Tetrabiblos, right? So what is that? What is that? What even is that? We're basing it on this. What is Tetrabiblos? All right, so Tetrabiblos is it's basically 4 books. Okay. And it's a text in the philosophy and practice of astrology, written in 2nd century AD by Claudius Ptolemy. Okay. Ptolemy's Almagest was an authoritative text on astronomy for more than 1,000 years. And the Tetrabiblos is a companion volume which was equally influential in astrology. The study of the effects of astronomical cycles on earthly matters. Okay, so he as a scientist wrote two basically he wrote books, right? But he wrote them on 2 different things, on astronomy and then astrology. So basically astronomy was the science, right? And astrology was the divination based on it. But at the time that he was writing it, they were together. They were as one, which allowed for astrology to kind of make its way into science, into being known as a science. So we hear here Ptolemaic astrology. It was in textbooks, right? So hold on. With the translation of Tetrabiblos in Latin in the 12th century, Ptolemaic astrology became integrated by Albertus Magnus and Thomas Aquinas into medieval Christian doctrine. The theological acceptance encouraged the teaching of Ptolemaic astrology in universities, often linked to medical studies. This, in turn, brought attention in literary works such as Dante's, which helped shape the moral Dante's Inferno, which helped shape the moral, religious, and cosmological paradigm of Western Europe during the medieval era. The Tetrabiblos was largely responsible for laying down the basic precepts of Renaissance astrology. It was a necessary textbook in some of the finest universities of Renaissance and early modern Europe. Okay, so here we're looking at how it was linked to medical studies. It was in universities. It was being taught clearly as a science. Ptolemaic astrology continued to be taught at European universities until when? The 17th century, right? 17th century. But by the mid 17th century, the study struggled to maintain its position as one of the respected liberal sciences. So, as we see, this is beginning to be a pattern. Around the 17th century, people started getting hip. People started, the scientific method came along. We got some telescopes and stuff. Oh no, hold on. This is a belief. I don't even know what we're learning this for. It's not real. Okay, that's what they're saying. This isn't real. This is intangible. We can't prove it with this new system we have here. We have to kind of let this go. And so so Ptolemy kind of lost footing. He lost his ground there, which I can understand politically. It probably was bad because back then, religion and politics and medicine kind of all were mixed in, and this is a time period that they started to separate out of that, right? But when you look at where is he at? Okay, when you look at him as to why things were natural and useful, right? He had began to try to show like why, you really needed this, you really needed these predictions, you really needed this stuff to help people to basically become, because he said that foreknowledge accustoms and calms the soul by experience of distant events as though they were present and prepares it to greet with calm and steadiness whatever comes. So he's trying to get people ready for their destiny, whether it's impending doom, whether it's happiness, no matter what. You know what I'm saying? Knowing what's coming will calm people and it gets them into a nice, malleable state. And he was using this to basically appeal to religious people and different kind of psychologies and stuff like that, so that he can continue to be considered, astrology continue to be considered a science. It's political here at this point. However, since medieval religious doctrine dictates that the individual soul must possess free will in order to be responsible for its own choices and the consequences that flow from them, then it has to, you can't really say like, okay, so basically they're saying, okay, a person has to have free will. He's saying that he could tell a prediction into the future, and they're like, okay, so how is this good? How is this anything? And he's saying, well, they can change it. You know what I'm saying? They have free will. They can do whatever. You know what I'm saying? It would be good to know what's coming up. And he switched his position because at first he was saying that it would just be good to know, regardless of the fact that you can't do anything about it. To appeal to the church, he was saying it will be good to know because you can change it. You have free will. You can do something different. You can do whatever. So he was doing a whole lot of politics and stuff with astrology once it became known that it was no longer a science, right? But the politics that he was doing was with who? The church, because it's a belief. And he knows the belief is divination. So it falls under belief wholeheartedly. It would never it can never appeal to science, because once they did that separation, we know that it's not scientific anymore. Um, but that's still not done, because he brought up astrological medicine, right? Because astrology wasn't medicine. Um, and it's basically saying that if you look here, you have the zodiac man, and this anatomical man or whatever. It has all of the zodiacs on the body, because it's the zodiac um is going to associate with a certain part of the body. So when you look that up, right? Zodiac man. The reason why that was important is because they observed that it's seen that the moon brought high tides, right? Moon's out, you see the high tides, they come. So the body parts that were associated with zodiac signs um, that the moon could, I guess what I'm saying. Basically the zodiac sign that was occupied by the moon, right? Where the moon could affect them. There you go. And when the moon, they were affected by the moon, then a tide of blood might gush out if they were doing bloodletting from that area, right? And they kind of let blood back then. For a lot, letting blood is like you cut something, you let the blood come out. So bloodletting was a way to cleanse things back then, cleanse you, and of different things. So they had the body parts associated with different zodiacs, and they would use that in medicine. So let's see, astrological medicine. Zodiac man was used in medieval medicine to determine the correct time for surgery, medication, bloodletting, and other procedures. The foremost rule was to avoid interfering with body parts when the moon could be found in its corresponding sign. The injunction was attributed to Claudius Ptolemy, of course. We just learned about him. Wherever the moon and stars are aligned with a certain astrological sign, they correlated with the body part, bodily system, or the four humors. The four humors separated the body into four parts, just as there are four elements. The four humors of the human body are yellow bile, black bile, phlegm, and blood. It was believed that these all needed to be in balance in order to keep up with your health. These humors were used directly to treat illness alongside the zodiac man. They were also used to explain and simplify concepts to patients. So as you see, it definitely was used in medicine. That definitely was a bad thing, right? It is no longer used in medicine. You will not find this anywhere in anybody's medical field ever, at all. They would probably laugh at you for bringing it up, right? And that's kind of going to my point as today. How are you saying that this is a pseudoscience today, when we know for sure that we would not be using the zodiac man, zodiac in any kind of medicine at all, right? So my conclusion is that astrology should not be considered a pseudoscience in modern times. Although astrology used to be a pseudoscience that was accepted as a science almost worldwide, with the advancements in science as far as the scientific method and the invention of the telescope, there became a big difference between astronomy, which is the actual observation and study of the universe, and astrology, divination of the stars or planets in the universe. Once this separation was clear and science began to become a practice, astrology was no longer considered a science. Thus, should drop the pseudoscience name. It is a belief based on ancient beliefs that the stars, basically not only affect human behavior, but also give messages of future events. Astrology can be considered a pseudoscience in its antiquity, but in modern times we know that we cannot prove that it affects our mood the same way we cannot prove the crystals work or that intuition exists. To be able to make a judgment that something cannot tell the future at a given time, you have to believe that the future is fixed and cannot change. To think you can tell someone's characteristics by asking questions would mean to just throw psychology out the window. We know ourselves so well, right? Testing these belief systems' accuracy is another show. But today we should acknowledge that it is a belief system and drop the pseudoscience label because it disrespects the believers in it. And what I'm saying about that whole to make a judgment that something cannot tell the future at a given time, it's like saying, if I tell you like, hey, you're on the road to destruction, you're gonna have a car accident next week, right? And then you're like, a car accident? Oh no. You go sell your car, you don't have a car accident. So you would have to believe that a future cannot be changed to believe that I was wrong. You can't really prove, you know what I'm saying? So it's like it's hard to prove that. It's like a placebo effect, right? Which is why it will fall under belief the same way when somebody prays and they get whatever they pray for. It is you can't prove that came from their prayer. Could have been you could have been getting it anyway. You know what I'm saying? It's a placebo effect. Period. So as far as astrology, no, I don't think that it can be tested. I think that it's that you believe in it. And based on your beliefs, you know what I'm saying, it can work or not. If you believe in manifestation, it may do that. You could believe in and basically just fulfilling something, they say that's gonna happen and then by all intents and purposes you end up making it happen. That can be something too, like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So it's so many different things that would have to go into that, which is why it is a belief system. Could it have been a pseudoscience in antiquity? Of course it was. Of course it was. When they were applying it to medicine and things like that before, yes, it was. Today, it is not. Anybody that is studying astrology, believes in astrology, and really plans their life by astrology, they know that they believe in this and that they believe that it works, and that's the reason why they're doing it. But I doubt that they would go against go against something that is scientifically proven to say, oh no, well, astrology says no, no. You know what I'm saying? Unless they doing it because they believe it. They believe that today is not the day to go get surgery because it says that it, was something bad. Venus is in the house, the fifth house, and whatever. You know what I'm saying? But then that's their belief, right? And it goes with belief. And you can say beliefs are dangerous. You can. I would say so because I see a lot of people who believe in things. I think they have cognitive dissonance. But at the same time, it does not make it a pseudoscience because as we saw, they had the medieval European Western medicine, and that had the fact that you got the bubonic plague was because you was a sinner and stuff like that, and that you get sick because you need to repent. And we're not calling the Catholic Church a pseudoscience. We're not saying that these priests are pseudoscientists. And I feel like if we could let them go with that and just be like, oh, no, that's belief, you can go ahead and let astrology do the same thing. It is a belief system. It has totally let go of the pseudoscientific ways. It has totally been let go of any kind of science, like that it would have to uphold. Astronomy took that and ran with it, and astrology remained the divination of the stars. Thank you.
We in the building? Like train
We
on
in
the
the
track.
It's the bar.
The bar?
Yep, and I reloaded my class.
And all new people, it be ready. What the business
We got
is?
sultry and sassy, scientific and pseudo, religious and ambitious.
Come give us your opinions.
At the bar, really loaded.
What the business
We in
is?
the building.
We in the building?
At the bar, really loaded.
What the business
We
is?
in the building.
We in the building?